Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani, and welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships and healing from these relationships. So let's talk about the fear of abandonment, which is a very universal relational fear. This conversation came up during an online chat, Instagram Live, whatever the heck it is, I was having recently with Dr. Kate Truitt. She has also recently released a book on trauma and healing and the neuroscience of healing from trauma. While lots of survivors of narcissistic abuse often do not classify their experience of trauma, we can definitely categorize narcissistic abuse as a form of relational trauma. And it is specifically a betrayal trauma. It's the loss of psychological safety that happens when we are chronically invalidated and betrayed in a relationship that was meant to be a place of trust. And obviously, this is so magnified when it's a narcissistic and betraying parent. And that means that the various sympathetic nervous system responses in folks who have experienced narcissistic abuse, to help them, we can learn from the work on trauma. Now, one thing that Dr. Truitt and I talked about is the drive for survivors of narcissistic relationships to withdraw at times, to want to be alone, to feel safer alone. This is interestingly to me because we took on solitude as a topic in my healing program as well. And it gets interesting. Some people have assumed that maybe survivors of narcissistic or traumatizing relationships of any kind withdraw into themselves or choose to be alone or find it hard to trust other people because it's sort of a hedge against abandonment, right? They're afraid of abandonment, especially after going through the abandonment of a narcissistic relationship. But it's not always that. On the live, I personally reflected on my own experiences. I have lots of fears, but let me tell you folks, fear of abandonment ain't one of them. So I wondered what my drive to sometimes pull back into myself, actually more than sometimes, pull back into myself. And it reminded me of what so many people have gone through these relationships have experienced and told me about. It's not the fear of being left. It's not the fear of being abandoned. It's the fear of being let down. A narcissistic relationship is a study in disappointment. If you ask a narcissistic person to do something, help you meet a deadline, empty the dishwasher, walk the dog, take the trash can out, you will face any number of responses. Anger, sulking, entitled rage. How could you ask me to do that? What do I look like, your assistant? Oppositionality. You can't tell me what to do. Or they do the passive-aggressive forgetting to do it or doing it in a half-assed way so you can't trust them to do it. Or then they tell you the thing you asked them to do is a stupid thing to do. But then they tell you they don't do it, and they tell you so late that you may not be able to make alternative arrangements, so you're left with a mess to fix. And as I've talked about in other videos, narcissistic relationships can actually start to get almost expensive if you find yourself having to pay more and more and more people to do stuff that theoretically, that if you were in a healthy relationship, the people in an intimate relationship, whether in a family, would be doing as a matter of course. Trust is already ruptured in a narcissistic relationship. Betrayal is the norm. And it's not just the disrupted trust of someone lying or cheating or stealing. It's also the disrupted trust of a person not showing up in a relationship as an attuned, caring person, or as Dr. Jennifer Fried says, not upholding the fundamental duties of a relationship. And that is almost worse, because when that isn't happening, our tendency is to blame ourselves. Maybe I wasn't clear. Maybe I didn't say it right. If people in narcissistic relationships could get back all the time they used to go back and double check an email or a text message to make sure they wrote it correctly after being, for example, gaslighted about it, you probably could add a few months to your life. But ultimately, it means that asking for anything for any survivor of a narcissistic relationship is a fraught space. However, none of us can do everything that needs to be done alone unless you have a very simple life. We count on other people. If we work in a team, if you delegate duties, if you're part of a household, raising kids, caring for pets, caring for family members, life needs other people. But folks in narcissistic relationships will sometimes say, the exhaustion of doing everything alone is actually nothing compared to the exhaustion of being let down. Because when other people are involved in an undertaking of any kind, we have hope. We have hope that they will hold up their part of the relationship or just have empathy and do the right thing. So not only does the thing we need done not get done, or the help we need doesn't show up, but also the thing still needs to get done. So you get to go through the demoralization of the multiple critiques about taking out the trash or emptying the dishwasher or getting the car to the shop or getting something done at work, and still may have to do it yourself. And the being let down by another person, it's a different kind of exhaustion. Some of you may argue, and I would say rightfully so, I agree, that a person chronically letting you down, not supporting, not showing up, isn't that just a different form of abandonment? And I'd say, yeah, it is. I'd argue that it's less primitive than someone literally walking out on you. It's not the infantile terror of that, of someone just, again, leaving. But it's the anticipatory sadness of knowing that you won't be supported and being reminded of how empty this relationship really is. The loss of trust isn't just the idea that someone is going to cheat or lie or steal or share your secrets, but that they just screw you over or let you down or let you have it if you ask them to do stuff. Better the exhaustion of doing it all than the frustration of asking another person and it not getting done. And then you get criticized for not delegating or told that you are playing the martyr by doing it all yourself. It always takes you back to the central mantra of these relationships: you can't win. Pay attention to the follower-throughers in your life, the people where you feel safe asking them to do something. It gets done when you ask them, maybe not perfectly, but well enough, and there's no strife. Pay attention to how it feels when that happens, and pay attention to who those people are, what they are like, what they are about. My sincere wish is that all of you have at least one person in your life who is a true follow-througher. While some do, many people who have narcissistic or experience narcissistic abuse don't always experience the terror of abandonment, but rather that chronic discomfort of always being let down and feeling bad for wanting a person to do their part in a relationship. I understand very much so the power that can come from that island sense of self-sufficiency. But that's where we as survivors don't do ourselves any favors. It's the radical acceptance we have that some folks in our worlds won't follow through, and ultimately that it's not you. But it makes life a lot more difficult to navigate. And yes, it is a form of abandonment, but it may be harder to identify or clock as abandonment. It may not feel that way because you actually may not give a damn if they were to leave you. But you are sick of them not doing what you ask or screwing it up when they do. And that simple idea of even if you radically accept that this person who's in my house is not going to do a damn thing, it still stings. So again, that fear of abandonment may be less that issue when we want to become an island unto ourselves in these relationships. Maybe less about the fear of abandonment and that fear, that chronic fear of being let down. Hope that's helpful, and thanks again.